Welcome, PaleriderTV, back with another video in our Fallen Flags of the Trucking Industry series. Today, we are going to covering, remember these people? Consolidated Freightways, what we used to call Cornflake. Hey, Cornflake. Call them on the CB. They were Cornflake. They were still around when I started driving in 1995, but man, there's a lot of trucking history involved with Consolidated Freightways that I didn't even know about. Learned a few things about CF doing the research for this video. So let's get into the story. Consolidated Freightways. If you had to name one of the most influential companies in trucking history, Consolidated Freightways would be near the top. While the trucking company CF is no longer with us, the legacy at CF lives on through the companies it spun off, including Freightliner. Now, I didn't know about that. CNF, which became part of XPO, and Purolator International. CF Freight, affectionately referred to by truckers as Cornflake. There you go, Cornflake, or Cornflakes, was founded in 1929 under the name Consolidated Freightways by Leland James. The company got its start in Portland, Oregon. The company was founded when James combined 4 short haul companies located in Portland into one trucking firm. Once these companies were combined, James focused on expanding their reach. At the time, trucking in the West was a fledgling industry. The lack of industrial expansion to the West at this point made any sort of progress difficult to achieve. Because of this, James focused primarily on establishing CF Freight as a force in Portland and the surrounding areas. Only after he achieved considerable success did he consider broadening the company's horizons. Almost immediately after the company was founded, the Great Depression devastated the citizens and industries of the United States. Competition was fierce and rates were low as a result. While many companies went under, unable to stay afloat in such desperate conditions, companies like CF were large enough to wait out the lean times. There you go. Occasionally, CF even benefited by picking up customers that had been dropped by other carriers that could not withstand the depression. CF's biggest competitor at the time was the railroad, which was reliable but often slow and unpredictable. In 1935, the Interstate Commerce Commission, or the ICC, which had for decades regulated the railroads, began to regulate the growing trucking industry as well. Following regulation, Consolidated proved itself a force to be reckoned with. Its routes encompassed Washington, Oregon, and California. No small feat considering the initial challenges presented by the lack of infrastructure in the West. More opportunity for growth arrived during World War II. The railroads that had previously been responsible for much of the interstate transportation of freight now were moving war supplies. Trucking companies were able to step up and fill the gaps left behind by the railroads, and CF seized the opportunity. Wow, that's some good stuff, man. By the war's end, CF had added dozens of new terminals throughout the western United States and had extended its service as far east as Chicago. By 1950, revenue stood at $24 million. 1950, they were bringing in $24 million. And the company was operating 1,600 pieces of freight equipment. Wow. Because the ICC regulated rates and routes, the best way for companies to grow was through acquisition. Consolidated Freightways began an aggressive acquisition strategy, and by the end of the 1950s, it had acquired an incredible 53 of its former competitors. Wow, awesome. The 1950s also saw CF's expansion into manufacturing. Immediately following World War II, James founded Freightliner Corporation in order to supply Consolidated with lighter, larger, and more sophisticated trucks and trailers to ensure that the company remained on the cutting edge of the competitive industry. I didn't know that part. Initially, Freightliner would only build for Consolidated, but in 1951, it signed an agreement with White Motor Corporation, which was based in Ohio, allowing its trucks to be sold through dealerships. The partnership continued for 25 years. After business was established at Freightliner, James' successor, Jack Sneed, added other manufacturing interests to the family of companies. Transicode Corporation manufactured railway components, and Technic Glass Corporation manufactured glass fiber products. Wow, they're bringing a lot of stuff. These manufacturing endeavors, coupled with the expanded truck lines, doubled Consolidated sales while Sneed was at the helm. In 1959, Consolidated hit 146 million in revenue, making it the largest common carrier in the United States. At the time, Consolidated had grown to employ nearly 11,000 people while operating 13,800 pieces of equipment in 34 states as well as Canada. Man, this success was misleading, however, as the company learned in the 1960s. Take a little break. Coffee sip break. All right, there we go. While the family of companies had grown, leadership had failed to integrate them effectively. This, combined with the economy in recession, led to a $2.7 million loss at the end of 1960. Sneed was asked to step down, and William G. White was named chairman and president of Consolidated Freight. He found that for all of Consolidated's acquisitions, integration was sorely wanting. White immediately set out to integrate the companies, focusing on coordinated control from headquarters as well as service. Traffic routes were defined and terminals were consolidated. White also decided to place a concerted effort on making Consolidated a leader in less than truckload or LTL freight movement when before it had only been a participant. Now getting into the LTL market. White also sold off a number of the company's subsidiaries that were more trouble than they were worth, including a small parcel company that was meant to compete directly with United Parcel Service. As a result of these actions, Consolidated's revenue increased at an average of 15% per year. And in 1969, Consolidated sales had reached $451 million. The company faced more challenges in the 1970s, especially when the Middle East oil embargo threatened trucking companies as gas and diesel prices soared. Consolidated's Freightliner endeavor was also challenged as the industry emphasized a need for fuel efficient equipment as well as surviving a new government mandate regarding their braking systems that disrupted normal sales cycles. In 1977, Freightliner severed its ties with White and began looking to build relationships with dealers and agents. Unfortunately, Freightliner could not compete with Mack and International Harvester, which manufactured more affordable equipment. CF sold Freightliner to Daimler-Benz in 1981. Wow, I never knew that. In 1980, the trucking industry was deregulated for the first time since the initial regulation by the ICC in 1935. Where some saw freedom, others saw the potential for heightened competition. Rather than cling to the manufacturing endeavors under CF's umbrella, the company elected to abandon its manufacturing interests altogether. Consolidated then created 4 regional trucking companies that was specialized in overnight delivery. Those four companies were doing $600 million in combined sales in the early 1990s, and CF Motor Freight, the company's long haul business, was also doing well. While over 50% of trucking business went out of business in the 8 years following deregulation, Consolidated its renewed focus and energy on its trucking endeavors allowed the company to not only survive but thrive, just as it had done in the Great Depression. In 1989, Consolidated's management made a misstep. Here we go. That proved to be quite costly. The company had been operating CF Air Freight, its own air freight forwarding company, for some time. They thought that purchasing another strong air freight forwarder could bolster the performance of CF Air Freight. They purchased Emery Air Freight Corporation, an industry leader at the time. I remember Emery Air Freight. Unfortunately, Emery's own subsidiary, Freightways Courier Corporation, was deeply in debt. At the time of the acquisition, the companies together were losing nearly $1 million per day, leaving Consolidated with a $41 million loss in 1990 and $614 million in debt. Wow. The CEO responsible for the acquisition, Larry Scott, was removed and replaced by Donald Moffett, making them heads roll. Moffett and Roger Curry, Emery's CEO, set out to undo the damage that had been done. They revamped Emery's overnight service and removed it from competition with other parcel companies. By 1995, Emery had made quite a comeback and was the air freight industry's most profitable firm. By 1990s were not without their challenge. However, the price wars that started with deregulation continued to decrease margins until CF was operating on profit margins of only 1.5%. A Teamster strike in 1994 lasted 24 days and drastically affected the company's annual revenues. Freight analysis began to question if the LTL industry could survive, calling the price war suicidal and expressing concern about competition from smaller, non-union regional carriers. Rate discounting took a heavy toll on CF's long-haul business, which achieved profitability only once between 1992 and 1996. The company elected to spin off CF Motor Freight and four other long-haul subsidiaries in 1996, renaming the group Consolidated Freightways Corporation. The remaining companies, Conway Transportation, Emery Worldwide, and Menlo Logistics, were rebranded CNF Transportation. The new CNF Transportation emerged from the rebranding with very little debt and once again could focus on its LTL offerings and expertise. CNF and CF were operated completely differently after the split. CNF was largely a non-union operating company, while the union operations remained with the legacy CF. Following the spinoff, CNF thrived as an independent company, while CF began to struggle. Because bankruptcies and sudden shuttering of multi-billion-dollar companies don't happen overnight, there were a number of decisions that predetermined the legendary company's fate. All right, now here we go. I got a long quote from Funding Universe. All right, here we go. Ill-advised decisions in 1999 inaugurated a period of poor financial performance at CF. The company suffered that year from a decision to take on marginal freight, including freight from carriers that had gone out of business. In addition, the switch to a new outsourced information technology system required a large investment. As a result, net income for 1999 was $2.7 million on sales of $2.3 billion. CF hoped to put its performance back on track in 2000. CEO Roger Curry retired in January of that year, and a new management team met in June of that year to develop a profitable strategy. The new CEO was Patrick Blake, a 30-year CF employee who had first began loading and driving for the company in 1971. As part of its turnaround strategy, CF sold its Menlo Park headquarters in August 2000 and moved to new offices in Vancouver, Washington. The company also bought First Air, a Minnesota-based air freight forwarder, an acquisition designed to improve CF's position in the expedient transportation market. The new air division was renamed CF Air Freight, recalling the company that had operated before the 1989 acquisition of Emery. In addition, CF bought in outside experts to help us use its terminals more effectively. Still, Blake emphasized that a turnaround would take some time. The company reported a net loss of $7.6 million for 2000. Unfortunately, CF's performance only worsened in 2001 as a declining economy and the impact of the September terrorist attacks in New York pushed the company's net loss to $104.3 million for the year. Ouch. The company's administrative staff was cut from 900 to 800 in June of that year, and hundreds of other employees were laid off at sites across North America. The loss of a major account late in 2001 contributed to a net loss of $36.5 million for the first quarter of 2002. I wonder what major account that was in 2001. Curious. It doesn't say. End quote. Try as it might, the company could not regain the ground they had lost. Consolidated Freightways Corporation filed for bankruptcy in September 2002 and closed its doors. At the time it filed for bankruptcy, the company had 15,000 employees and was generating around $2 billion in annual revenue. The company that had been spun off, CNF Transportation, rebranded itself under the name Conway and remained in business until 2015 when it was acquired by XPO Logistics. Wow, that's some history there. The rise and fall of Consolidated Freightways. Sounds like yes, some bad management there in the later days and ran it in the ground. Wow. Well, that's some good old school trucking history. They started way back in 1929 out there in Oregon. Man, that's crazy stuff, man. 1929. And a lot of trucking history. Freightliner. I didn't know anything about Freightliner. And Freightliner White. And, wow, that's crazy. I never knew that part. I always learn something when I'm researching these stories, these videos. So let me know down in the comment section. You ever drive some of the old school guys? You ever drive for Cornflake, Consolidated Freightways? How about one of the spin-offs, Conway or XPO or any of those? I don't know. Also, let me know what y'all think about this trucking history. This is some trucking history. We all surprised about the trucking history there involved with CF, but they no longer exist. And it'd be nice to have a big old cab over and a big old, what is that? I don't know, it's a 53 foot or a 48 foot maybe van trailer there. CF Cornflake. Good old Cornflake. So if you're liking this series, let me know about that also. Give me a thumbs up. Share this out to all your friends and family and coworkers. And stay tuned for the next video in the fallen flags of the trucking industry. So I appreciate everybody watching. Everybody have a good day. Stay safe.